I slammed the brakes the moment my headlights hit the metal, an iron gate towering across the entrance to my lake, glowing under harsh security lights like a prison yard. Two guards stepped out of a booth that had never existed, hands on radios acting like I'd wandered into federal property. "Sir, this road is restricted." Restricted Cedar Hollow had been open my entire life. Then I saw it, the sign bolted to the bars. Private Amenity. Evergreen Ridge Ho. My stomach dropped. My name wasn't anywhere on it. I told them to open the gate. Instead, one guard lifted a clipboard and said, "Before you go any further, Mr. Briggs, we need to verify your guest status." Guest, at my own lake. Before that night, Evergreen Ridge was just a cluster of expensive rooftops on the hill, harmless, pretentious, and far enough away that I didn't bother learning anyone's name. But one name forced itself into my life: Linda Caro, HOA president. Linda was the kind of woman who treated rules the way preachers treat scripture: holy, absolute, and always weaponized. Perfect posture, perfect manicure, and a permanent expression like she smelled something sour. She ran Evergreen Ridge like a miniature kingdom, and every homeowner bent the knee or got buried under courtesy notices. Then there was Colin Harrow, the HOA's pet attorney. Slick smile, shiny shoes, and a voice that made every lie sound like a legal blessing. He specialized in creative boundary interpretation, which was lawyer speak for stealing things with paperwork instead of crowbars. According to them, Cedar Hollow Lake was underutilized potential, a wasted asset, a pretty pond sitting in the wrong hands. I didn't know any of this when I pulled up to the gate. I had no idea Linda had been telling residents the lake was practically theirs, or that Colin had been drawing up documents to make that lie look real. All I knew was this: someone had decided my family's land belonged to them, and the gate was only their opening move. Cedar Hollow wasn't just land on a map to me. It was the place where I learned how to skip stones, where my grandfather Walter taught me how to read water the way some men read books. He carved the first dock with his own hands, dragged timber down the bank with nothing but stubbornness and a rusted winch, and told me the same thing every summer: "You don't own a lake, Noah. You take care of it." When he passed, he left me all 60 acres of it. Shoreline trails, access road, every piece spelled out clean in the deed. I didn't move there full-time. My work kept me bouncing between Colorado and whatever state needed a civil engineer who specialized in watershed projects. But Cedar Hollow was where I went to breathe again. 1 hour north of Fort Collins, tucked between pines and ridgeline shadows, it was the one place that felt untouched by noise. I kept it open to anyone who respected it. Families picnicked on weekends, retirees fished off the docks, church groups asked permission for baptisms. No fees, no passes, no red tape. Just a simple rule: leave the place as good as you found it. Then came Jake Collier, an old friend with a calm voice and a harmless dream. He wanted to build a small cluster of rustic cabins near the road, far from the water, far from anything delicate. I trusted him. We had a tight lease drawn up. He got 6 acres for 10 years. I kept everything else. Shoreline rights, dock rights, water rights, clearly written, clearly mine. Jake handled bookings. I handled the lake. It worked. For 2 years, guests loved the quiet. Jake kept his promise. Every person who stayed in his cabins heard the same line: "The lake belongs to Noah. Treat it with respect." And then Evergreen Ridge bloomed across the ridge. Fancy roofs, manicured driveways, mailboxes that matched in color and price tag. They were close enough to see the lake, but far enough that I didn't think twice. Some residents wandered down to fish or take photos. I didn't mind. As long as people followed the rules, Cedar Hollow stayed peaceful. But peace has a funny way of attracting people who think they deserve more than they're given. Evergreen Ridge looked down at my lake like it was a view they'd paid for, and someone up there decided they wanted more than a view. The morning after the gate incident, I didn't bother making breakfast. I drove straight to Jake's cabin, not to talk, but to demand answers. His truck was in the driveway, frost still clinging to the windshield, and his porch light was still glowing, like he hadn't slept at all. He opened the door before I could knock. "Noah," he breathed, hair sticking up, voice tight. "You saw it, didn't you?" "Saw it." I stepped inside. I got turned away from my own damn property. Jake winced, like the words physically hit him. He motioned me to the kitchen table. "Look, Evergreen Ridge said they were just installing safety measures. Lights patrols things to help the cabins look more professional." I slammed my folder of documents onto the table. They built a gate. They hired security. They locked every dock I own. And they're charging people to use them. Jake swallowed hard. I didn't know it went that far. They told me it was a community initiative. Community initiative. That phrase tasted like bleach. I flipped open the folder, pulled out a printed PDF I'd found on the HOA's public site. Then explain why this shows your cabin parcel wrapping around the entire shoreline. He blinked. That's not my signature. It is, I said. Just not from this document. They cloned it from your lease with me. I set both documents side by side, overlays matching perfectly. Jake's face drained of color. Noah, I swear to God I didn't agree to this. I believe you, I said. But believing you doesn't fix the fact that Evergreen Ridge forged a land agreement and posted it online. Jake sat heavily in his chair. Jesus, what do we do? I didn't answer yet. I needed more than outrage. I needed an airtight case. For the next 72 hours, I lived off coffee and adrenaline. My dining table turned into a war room, plats, tax maps, boundary surveys, screenshots, printed PDFs, photos of the docks, photos of the gate. I even dug out pictures of my grandfather standing beside the original shoreline markers. Every document had one purpose to prove Cedar Hollow was mine, untouched, uncontested, and unshared for nearly 70 years. I highlighted inconsistencies in the HOA's fake map, parcel lines stretched like rubber bands, easements magically appearing, road access rerouted to show shared ownership. Fraud wasn't a guess anymore, it was a guarantee. By Monday morning, I was sitting in the office of Dana Morales, a property rights attorney with a stare sharp enough to cut through metal. Her desk was clean except for a titanium watch and a mug that read, "Sue, first apologize never." She spent 20 minutes flipping through my binder in total silence. When she closed it, she said, "This isn't sloppy. This is strategic. And whoever engineered it knew exactly how to manipulate county mapping." "Name's Colin Harrow," I said. "HOA's golden boy attorney." She smirked. "Figures. You know who else is in this." She tapped the forged shoreline map. "Your zoning director, Trevor Lang. He loves sitting on update requests until the right people tell him to move them." I exhaled sharply. "He's been stonewalling mine for months. Then he's in it. I'll subpoena everything. Emails, drafts, metadata." She snapped her notebook shut. "We're filing 2 lawsuits. One against Jake for breach of lease, leverage only. The second is a full strike against Evergreen Ridge for fraud, trespass, and unlawful commercial use of private land." Finally, someone speaking my language. But the fight was just beginning. That evening, something kept nagging me, a feeling I'd buried under paperwork and rage. The docks weren't just relabeled, they were clean. Too clean. The shoreline looked altered, groomed, landscaped. I drove to Cedar Hollow the back way again, headlights off as I crept through the trees. When I stepped out onto the western shore, the air smelled wrong, sweet chemical, artificial. I knelt at the waterline, dipped a testing strip, and waited. The color changed instantly. Nitrates, high. I tested again, same result. My stomach went cold. The lake had always been stable, cleaner than most state parks. Walter had kept it balanced, and I'd kept logs for years. Elevated nitrates didn't happen naturally overnight. I followed the shoreline until I found it a decorative green zone the HOA had installed, complete with ornamental shrubs. Behind it sat 3 chemical containers in a plastic-lined trench lids, missing, slowly leaking into the slope. I took photos, water samples, soil samples, everything. The next afternoon, my phone rang. It was my old colleague at the Colorado Department of Environmental Quality. "Noah, whatever they dumped up there isn't just lawn treatment. You've got phosphates, herbicide traces, and gray water runoff. This is illegal. I'm forwarding it to enforcement." I stared at the lake in silence. This wasn't just trespass anymore. It was poisoning. 3 days after Dana filed the lawsuits, someone in the courthouse leaked the case to the local paper. A tiny headline appeared online. "Private landowner accuses HOA of boundary fraud at Cedar Hollow Lake." That was all it took. My phone lit up like it had been plugged into lightning. Local radio, regional news, environmental blogs. Everyone wanted a statement. I gave one calm, simple, factual. I own the lake. The HOA forged documents to claim it. And they polluted the shoreline. By sunset, residents from Evergreen Ridge were posting screenshots of fees they paid for lake amenity access, photos of QR codes, confirmation emails, promising exclusive Evergreen Ridge lake privileges. Then the environmental report hit the news. Suddenly, the HOA wasn't just greedy, they were negligent. Parents were furious. Fishermen even more so. Evergreen Ridge shut down its social media pages within hours. Comments disappeared. The HOA newsletter went silent, but the damage was done. State investigators were on their way, and Dana had just submitted evidence that would bury them. The escalation had stopped being a dispute. It had turned into a full-scale war. Courtrooms look bigger on TV. In real life, they feel cramped. Press crammed into benches, homeowners whispering behind cupped hands, camera shutters flicking like insects. Evergreen Ridge had shown up in force cardigan armies, folded arms, faces pinched with embarrassment or denial. Their board sat in front Linda Caro, stiff as stone, and beside her attorney Colin Harrow, looking like someone who expected to talk his way out of a homicide. When my name was called, I walked to the plaintiff's table with Dana Morales. She didn't bother with small talk or theatrics. She simply stood, adjusted her glasses, and began the dissection. Your Honor, the HOA presents a joint use agreement claiming dock, shoreline, and access privileges. Here is the original. Here is the forged version. Here is a forensic analysis showing the signature was digitally lifted from my client's tenant lease. Here is the metadata proving the document was uploaded from an Evergreen Ridge board account. Each sentence landed like a dropped anvil. Colin objected, but his voice cracked halfway through. The judge didn't even look at him. Sit down, Mr. Harrow, Dana continued. She slid a transparency overlay onto the projector, perfectly aligning Jake's real signature with the forged version. They matched in every pressure point pixel slant. In the gallery, someone whispered, "Oh my God." Next came the maps. The HOA's fake shoreline boundary stretched and twisted like a rubber band compared to the official county plat. Then Dana calmly introduced the zoning request I'd filed months earlier, the one Trevor Lang had misplaced. Your Honor, she said, Mr. Lang's role is not peripheral. He intentionally withheld updates that would have exposed the HOA's forged boundary map. Colin tried again. There was no intent. Dana didn't let him finish. She clicked to the next slide. Photos of leaking chemical containers, nitrate readings, phosphate levels, the state's environmental report stamped and dated. This contamination occurred under Evergreen Ridge's beautification project, carried out on private property they did not own, using unlicensed landscaping chemicals. They not only trespassed, they polluted a protected water system. Linda's face turned the color of wet clay. Then came the final blow. Dana lifted a restaurant receipt, crumpled, greasy, but devastating. This dinner occurred 3 weeks before the forged shoreline agreement appeared online. Present Mr. Collier, who believed it was a routine meeting. And these two, she pointed to the names Mr. Harrow and zoning director Trevor Lang. Gasps shot through the room. The judge leaned forward, his jaw tight. Mr. Harrow, do you care to explain why you were dining with the county zoning director while preparing documents now determined to be fraudulent? Colin's silence was its own confession. The judge shuffled the papers, exhaled hard, and spoke with the weight of a slammed vault door. The joint use agreement is void and fraudulent. Evergreen Ridge HOA is ordered to cease all activity on or around Cedar Hollow Lake. All physical structures, gates, signage, locks, docks are to be removed immediately. The HOA will pay $520, 0 inches fines, damages, and environmental remediation. Additionally, the court refers Mr. Harrow and Mr. Lang to the State Attorney General for investigation into document forgery, boundary fraud, and environmental negligence. Pandemonium erupted. Homeowners shouted, some at the board, some at each other. Someone yelled, "You ruined our entire subdivision." Linda stormed out, shoulders trembling. Colin was escorted into the hallway where 2 uniformed deputies were waiting. Dana closed her binder with a soft click. That she whispered to me is checkmate. And as I stepped outside into the cold Colorado air cameras, flashing microphones chasing me, I didn't feel triumph, just relief. Because Cedar Hollow was finally mine again. The morning they tore the gate down the sky was the same soft gray my grandfather used to call work weather. No glare, no heat, just good, honest daylight. A crew hired by the court rolled in at 8 a.m. sharp trucks, angle grinders, pry bars, and for once nobody tried to stop them. I stood against my truck while sparks showered across the gravel. The iron bars toppled like a decrowned throne. The security booth followed one clean swing of the backhoe metal folding under its own arrogance. A sheriff's deputy walked past me, hands on his belt. "Feels good to watch something get unbuilt for once," he said. "Feels right," I replied. When the last post hit, the flatbed Cedar Hollow's entrance looked like it used to open quiet, welcoming. Not a fortress. Not a revenue stream. Just a road that led home. The legal battle wasn't over. Evergreen Ridge still had to pay the restitution, but the land needed me first. The chemical dumping had done real harm. Grass died in strange patterns along the embankment, and the water near the fake green zone looked bruised. I hired a restoration crew, ecologists, soil specialists, people who respected land the way my grandfather taught me to. We dug out every contaminated layer, trucked in fresh soil, replanted only native vegetation. No more ornamental shrubs or HOA-friendly decor. Just cattails, willow sprouts, wild iris. The plants that belonged. Life came back fast. Birds returned to the branches. Frogs croaked again at dusk. Even the surface of the lake seemed clearer, like it had been holding its breath for months. But the smartest decision I made was hiring Hank Lawson, a retired forest ranger with a face like an old saddle and a walk like he owned the place. I gave him one rule: keep it honest. He nodded once. Honest pays better than politics. He patrolled each sunrise and sunset, not with a badge, just presence. And people respected him instantly. I rebuilt the website from scratch. One clean page. No marketing fluff. No booking tricks. No HOA nonsense. Cedar Hollow Lake access by permission. Respect the land. Respect each other. Requests poured in families who'd visited for generations, school groups wanting outdoor days, church elders asking quietly if baptisms were still allowed. Most requests I approved. A few I denied, especially the ones that came from Evergreen Ridge usernames I recognized. Funny thing though, some of those residents came back anyway. Not demanding, not entitled, just humbled. One woman, Sharon, wrote, "I'm sorry. I believe the newsletters. Could I bring my son to fish? He doesn't understand what happened, and I don't want him punished for my mistake." I said yes, because the kid hadn't done anything wrong. The cabins legally mine through the settlement got new life too. I gutted them, repainted, uncluttered them from the resort junk Evergreen had tried to slap on. No booking apps, no premium lake access, just a simple listing: Cedar Hollow Retreats, the Honest Cabins, each one named after a native tree: spruce, aspen, juniper, cottonwood. Hank handled every reservation in person. One rule in bold at the bottom of the packet: you are a guest, not an owner. Respect the land or leave it. Nobody argued. Evergreen Ridge held an emergency meeting a week after the court ruling. Someone sent me a video, Linda Caro being shouted off the stage while residents accused her of tanking property values, ruining reputations, and dragging the entire subdivision into debt. Colin Harrow was arraigned the next morning. Trevor Lang took early retirement, which is code for lawyers chewing on his ankles. 2 weeks later, I got a glossy flyer in the mail. Evergreen Ridge, a community renewed new board. New vision, same pride. New vision, but the same denial. Not one word about Cedar Hollow. Not a sentence about the fraud, the fines, or the damage they caused. I pinned it to my fridge like a trophy. 3 Saturdays later, I hosted something simple, a potluck open to anyone who wanted to show up. No sign-ups, no wristbands, no QR codes, just tables, a grill, and the lake breathing easy again. Hank grilled ribs. I made lemonade so strong it could dissolve rust. Kids ran the shoreline barefoot. Old-timers swapped fishing stories. People laughed like the lake itself was healing them. At one point, a small boy, maybe 8, walked up holding a tackle box almost as big as him. "Mr. Briggs," he asked, "do you really own this whole lake?" I looked out at the water, clean, calm, alive again. "I take care of it," I said. "That's close enough." He nodded like that was the only answer that made sense, then sprinted off toward the docks, shouting something about catching the biggest fish in Colorado. The sun dipped, casting golden light across Cedar Hollow. And for the first time in months, the place felt like it belonged not to me, but to something good again. "Hey," Hank said beside me, raising his beer. "No, HOA." I clinked mine to his. "Not now," I said. "Not ever." And the lake stayed quiet, peaceful, and free, exactly how it was always meant to be.